the sole purpose behind writing this book was to educate and inform the voters of our country, the younger voter, especially, and also anybody who believes in democracy internationally, if he or she wants to know more about how elections are conducted in India. That was the whole purpose behind writing the book. This book is also a learning for me and understanding the election commission as an institution, the constitutional body. We talk about, not many people know about certain institutions like Supreme Court, Reserve Bank of India, and the agencies, but election commission had also always been considered as an institution which comes into action only during elections. That's the image. And people say it's a toothless body, it cannot act. No, that's absolutely wrong. They are the kings. They are the kings during the elections, and election commission has, because for us also, and we are living in an era which you understand, Neelu, very well, and other journalists who are working day in and day out on the different policies and trying to bring out the wrongdoings in the public domain. It is difficult. We are facing a lot of problem in today's era in this particular ruling government, and we cannot shy away from saying that the things are much more difficult than it was 10 years ago. There is no end to worry. I've done my job with honesty and with full dedication. Rest is on the viewers and the readers, and they should decide after reading the book what it is. And I will leave it to them to pass it on to the other person if they find value to it. Because let's not forget that it's just not the political party who are the stakeholders of election. We are equally stakeholders, and if a question is asked by any voter through RTI, Election Commission is bound to give a reply. They cannot reject it on flimsy ground.
Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. Since about a last year, I think we've been talking about repeatedly about one fact, and that is how elections are being rigged. And they have been scientifically being rigged. Electoral fraud has come out in various manifestations. We've spoken about Form 17C, we've spoken about EVMs, we've spoken about VVPAT. We've also spoken about how things are on the ground, how Panna Pramukhs get along with the junior electoral officers and they try and rig the system, not once, but many, many times. And we've done innumerable programs. But all these programs are on one side. But when you see that there is a book in the market on this, and it's called India Inked, which I want to specifically talk about. This is a special episode of Truth Be Told, and we have a very special guest, the author of this book, the renowned investigative journalist Poonam Agarwal. She has authored this book. And just to give you a little brief, it's not a bulky book at all, just 223 pages with some 9 chapters, I believe. Yes, 9 chapters. And beautifully, the entire story of the electoral fraud has been woven. It begins with explaining what the beast the Indian elections is. Then she comes on to the bills to be paid, the cost of running the mother of democracy, the specter of democratic backsliding. Electoral bonds is also a very interesting chapter in this book. Then she also writes about once bitten, twice shy, and she writes about the public institutions that enabled it. Then the legal career of political finance or no free lunches, that is one chapter, biography of the Election Commission, and some unpacking questions. And the most interesting part, the foreword of the book has been written by none other but Ashok Lavasa. So you can imagine the authenticity of the book, the credibility of the book. You can pick up your book from the stand. It's available. And I read this entire book in just about 3 days. Poonam had sent it to me. And it's a beautifully written book. And believe me that I've done so many programs, but even I was forced to underline few facts from this book, which I thought that probably this was something which I didn't know. So if you look at this book, the inner pages, I've underlined various pages, and which I will, for my further reference, I'm going to use this book as one reference point when you're talking about electoral fraud, when you're talking about electoral democracy, what election commission has done. So we'll talk to Poonam Agarwal, who joins us this evening on HW. Thank you so much, Poonam, for joining on HW, and congratulations on a wonderfully written book. And I hope that the sale shoots up and you become a star. And I'm sure lots and lots of people will pick up this book. But the first question to you, Poonam, how many days or months or years, how much time did you actually take to write a book like this?
Thank you, Neelu, for having me here, and thank you for reading the book and praising it. Um, this is my first book. I've written a chapter in another book that was also on electoral democracy, but this is my first book. And the process of writing started in 2024, early 2024. But since I had to, take in all the information related to Lok Sabha 2024 elections, so I had to stop in between and then restart after the elections were over. So yes, it took me time, but people say like writing a book is like write 1,000 words a day or 2,000 words a day and you will finish. No, anybody who's aspiring to write a book, please understand it's a full-time job. You need to be in flow to write the book. So I really had to dedicate my full focus to the book after the election results were out so that I could submit the copy. So yeah, you can say more or less 2024 second half was into it because back and forth of the draft happened. And I'm glad that I could finish it and deliver the book because I didn't want it to stretch either after the elections were over. So this book is also a learning for me and understanding the election commission as an institution, the constitutional body. We talk about, not many people know about certain institutions like Supreme Court, Reserve Bank of India, and the agencies, but election commission had also always been considered as an institution which comes into action only during elections. That's the image. And people say it's a toothless body, it cannot act. No, that's absolutely wrong. They are the kings. They are the kings during the elections. And election commission has so many powers. Let's not forget TN Session. He was one election commissioner who, chief election commissioner, who told the entire country how chief election commissioners should work. And I really hope we get another TN session, at least in my lifetime, and see how he functions. Because today we have somewhere reached a stage where we actually need a man who runs the election commission with full authority, because so many questions are being raised. The trust has gone down among people. Political parties are raising questions on the conduct.
But Poonam, allow me to interrupt you. How hopeful are you that the country can have another TN session? Because when the entire appointment process of the chief election commissioner and the election commissioners is compromised now, it is in the hands of the government. How are we going to have another TN session in the country? Do we even have a hope of of that?
Very well asked question and timely asked, Neelu. This is one thing, it's a big problem. And let me tell you, this matter is already in the court, not from today, but it's been already a year. And this matter came up for hearing in the Supreme Court just before the election commission appointment was due, but it was again adjourned, which was a very sad thing. The Supreme Court, knowing the gravity of the appointment of election commission, still adjourn the matter. They should have, in fact, they should have heard it last year itself, much ahead of the appointment. Right now, the powers of appointing election commission is in the hands of the executive. Like the selection committee has three people: a prime minister, home minister, and the leader of opposition. So of course, it goes in the hands of the executive. But the point is that let's not lose hope. I am a person who believes in having. I am very hopeful and positive person in that way. Let's not forget what happened to electoral bonds judgment. It took 6 years, but we got that judgment. I'm not saying the same should happen with this, but the petition is still pending in the Supreme Court on the selection of election commissioner. So, of course, right now, what needs to be looked into is the process in which the appointment is happening. Until unless that is done in a transparent way, like at least earlier the chief CJI was supposed to be there, Chief Justice of India, but now he's not there. So now, until as the appointment process is fixed by the Supreme Court, of course, there isn't much hope about the functioning of the Election Commission.
Uh, Talking about the chapters of the book, they're beautifully written, about 9 chapters, not very long, but yes, everything very succinctly put in as far as the electoral fraud is concerned. You've spoken about EVMs, spoken about VVPAT slips, you've spoken about Form 17C. Was it a challenge weaving the various chapters? Were at any point of time were you in a doubt that how to begin the book? How much time did you actually take to think about how to make a start? Or was it clear in your head that this is the way I'm going to start the story, I mean the chapterization of the book?
The chapterization, just to go a little back, when the publisher approached me, uh, they approached me because of the electoral bonds and the EVM controversy. So that was the basis, because electoral bond, such a big judgment had come out, the entire, it was struck down the scheme. So, but we cannot just write about electoral bonds. We need to weave in a way to show the correlation between elections and political funding. And political funding means electoral bonds. So we had to first showcase this in a way that we give the reader the whole electoral process, showcases in a way that anybody who reads the book, even out of India, who's not an Indian, any citizen of any country, if he reads the book, he or she reads the book, he gets to understand how the electoral process happens in India and world's largest democracy, how elections are conducted, and why political funding is such a crucial matter in any democratic country. So we had to weave it in a way and not just make it a book of electoral bond scheme. Otherwise, it would have just focused on political funding and the nuance and the problems that happened in bringing in that scheme. So my the sole purpose behind writing this book was to educate and inform the voters of our country, the younger voter, especially, and also anybody who believes in democracy internationally, if he or she wants to know more about how elections are conducted in India. That was the whole purpose behind writing the book, not just to speak about one scam or one wrongdoing of the government.
Which chapter do you think was the most challenging for you, Poonam, while you were writing? And there are various aspects you've dwelt upon. So, what do you think was the most challenging part of this book?
So the most challenging, I would say as far as electoral bonds are concerned, everything is in black and white. Of course, other things are also there, but that is something I went through. So I would also like to tell my your viewers here that when you purchase this book, you're actually carrying a part of me, my work. It also speaks about my working on the electoral bond expose, my conversation with my editor, my entire process of getting that hidden number out in the public domain, how I figured out that there was a hidden number, unique hidden number in the electoral bond, what went behind it. For the youngsters, the Gen Z lingo is that behind the scene. You can get a glimpse of it, how investigative journalists they work. Because for us also, and we are living in an era which you understand, Neelu, very well, and other journalists who are working day in and day out on the different policies and trying to bring out the wrongdoings in the public domain, it is difficult. We are facing a lot of problem in today's era in this particular ruling government, and we cannot shy away from saying that the things are much more difficult than it was 10 years ago. And I have touched upon that also, because I've been working for past 20 years as an investigative journalist. It's more than 20 years now. So when I worked earlier in the different regime, that time my only worry was the risk I took in covering a story, and the, the litigation, if you at all face, from the person who has been exposed. But today we have to think more about how government would react, whether you will get any, you will be harassed or not, will there be any fake FIR,
Right.
uh, so those are the things that become a larger worry today, rather than exposing anything. If you
Mm.
really want the public domain. So I have actually, I'm very thankful to my, and I have written about him in the acknowledgement section, Mr. Raghav Behel, who was the editor, who
Yes.
is the went, and he allowed me to do the story. So it takes a lot of pain, lots of thinking goes behind it before you come out with this. An electoral bond, you all of us know, was one of the very close flagship scheme of the government, with which the former finance minister Mr. Jaitley, he brought in with lots of hope. So doing that story, and what were the hurdles, or you can say, the thrill, I would say, I would take it in that way, the thrill behind exposing it was also there. So this is also about an investigative journalist, and it didn't stop there. After political funding, I went into election commission. Then another thing, for the first time, came out, the votes polled and votes counted data was not matching. So that was also a question raised on the election, and that was related to Lok Sabha 2019 elections, when BJP came to power with majority. So again, once again, you were questioning the election commission based on the election. So, you kept on working and working and working. So when you deep dive into something, it's one layer after another layer and after another layer. And in 2024, we bear the fruits. We see the fruits actually finally coming out with the Supreme Court judgment on electoral bonds, the noise there on votes polled and votes counted data. People started tweeting, writing, political party demanding for votes polled data. You remember that entire noise. So everything is here. I've written it. So when I say you're carrying a part of me, by that I mean that you're carrying a part of my work, and which I have put in this. So when you read it, as to your viewer, I would say, when you read it with keeping in mind that it's just not about election. It's also about journalism. It's also about media, the tough times media face. I've spoken about different cases, that media has faced, like the Queen, News Laundry, the harassment, News Clip. We all are facing these. In spite of all these hurdles, we pave our way and we try to bring out truth. And this book will tell you about journalists as well, the media, the scenario, the current governance. So, a lot of thought went into it, and a lot of, I would say, careful, carefully chosen words in the book you will find was, when I weaved in, I wrote it with a lot of caution as well, because I know the responsibility I carry on my shoulders, so I cannot miss on that. So this book is written with full honesty, and there is no purpose to malign anyone. The only purpose here is that we need elections which is fair and transparent, and it is the duty of the election commission.
Right. But what do you think was, the biggest challenge for you? Did you face any trolls so far? And normally, what happens is that when we were doing programs on electoral fraud, then we were trolled big time. That look, this is what you have said. You're against the country. You're anti-national. You're questioning the election commission. And one must not forget those press conferences by Rajiv Kumar. How he used to look down upon the people who are questioning the election commission. So given that kind of a backdrop, which is already there and people have seen it, any trouble, any sort of challenge you faced on that front, post the when the book came out in the market?
So the first thing which I that when the book came out in the market, many people asked me, who is the publisher who agreed to publish on electoral bonds? That was a surprise factor. Really? They agreed and they published it? I said, yes. So even this book being out is a surprise element to many people, considering the scenario we are living in. And secondly, the forward by Ashok Lavasa. So a very funny joke someone said, and it's a bit of a, it's circulating that Ashok Lavasa wrote the dissent note when he was election commissioner, and then he wrote Poonam's books forward. So, Ashok Lavasa, who is considered to be a man of integrity, who had gone through a lot. So, I'm really thankful to him for writing this because this gives a lot of credibility to my work as well. And considering that this book is already out in the market and you can see people who have endorsed it, I just want to a little bit of bragging, if you allow, that it's being endorsed by Rajdeep, Ravish Kumar, S.Y. Qureshi, former Chief Election Commissioner, then Sucheta Dalal, N. Ram, editor of Hindu, Justice Madhun Lokor, Jagdeep Chokar, Jawahar Sarkar, Sam Pitroda. Like, these are the people who have endorsed it. So, this gives a lot of credibility to my work, and I'm really thankful to all of them. So, as far as the trolls are concerned, Neelu, you know who these people are. They can troll on 10 minutes video, but to troll a book, they need to read it. Even if it is of 225 or 23 pages, they need to read it. Then they can
Absolutely.
troll. Yes, they just see my name and the subject and they think that there is something which is anti-government and start trolling. That's a different ballgame altogether. But I think all of us have crossed that phase. We know we are doing our job with full honesty and we are keeping our facts together. So even if they troll or not troll doesn't matter, to me at least. And I'm really thankful for the to the publisher who agreed to publish the book, because in today's situation it takes a lot of courage to come out with
Absolutely.
something.
I was listening to you carefully while you were speaking, and I remember that, few videos which we had done questioning the EVMs. The reach of those videos got limited, and I don't know what was the reason, but we used to get those warnings that, there's something wrong with this video. Those videos couldn't be monetized. Now, when you write a book like this, and writing a book is a completely different ball game, than sitting in front of a laptop and doing a program in front of a camera. But when you're writing a book, does it worry you at all, Poonam, that maybe certain forces, and I'm not going to name those forces, that they might restrict the sale? Just as you said that it takes a lot of courage for any publisher to get ready for a subject like this. Does it worry you that maybe the sales get restricted for some unknown reason, or you're fully confident that the kind of content you have given, it will go to the people and people would want to read it?
See, in today's scenario, we cannot say anything about anything. Government, if they come out all guns blazing that this book should be banned or something, what can you do? Then people will read on Kindle. People will take out ebooks. Still, it will reach people. My purpose is to reach people. And
Yeah.
that's all. They can ban a book, but they can't ban on internet. So I feel that there is no end to worry. I've done my job with honesty and with full dedication. Rest is on the viewers and the readers, and they should decide after reading the book what it is. And I will leave it to them to pass it on to the other person if they find value to it. Because as a voter, unfortunately, I never had any book to read like this when I started working on it. And there's a very limited book, I would say none, who speaks about the distrust on the election commission. And there is we can get lots of books on how political parties strategize elections and how elections have been done and who won and who lost, and psephologists are there, but nobody speaks about on the functioning of the election commission. So I feel that this is one area where we need to discuss and have debate as much possible. Only then maybe election commission will also come for become a bit more responsible and accountable to the people. And we are seeing some changes, as you rightly said, that we are seeing some changes in the election commission. They are answering to some of our questions now, but also in a very limited way. At least they are trying to show that they are working on some of them.
Hmm.
But the point is that let's not forget that it's just not the political party who are the stakeholders of election. We are equally stakeholders, and if a question is asked by any voter through RTI, election commission is bound to give a reply. They cannot reject it on flimsy ground. And as you know, there are many schemes which are coming up restricting RTI acts also, and they how badly RTI acts have been diluted. There were few amendments made by the election commission on the rules as far as the demand for the footage is concerned or any other data. Why? At least I have not received any answer from election commission so far. Maybe one or two RTIs. So that's the sad part. They just do not reply under RTI as well. Forget about journalists. So this thing, they really need to bring back those days when people had trust on election commission. If they lose trust on election commission, Neelu, it's a very scary thing. If because people, and I'm telling you based on some conversation that happened, people have started saying, "क्या फायदा है वोट डालकर?" What is the point in voting if election commission is compromised?
But
So
when
this,
you were researching, Poonam, when you were researching, I mean, I'm curious to know that whether uh, in Indian history, do we have a book like this which talks about electoral fraud and so minutely and in such great detail? Is there any book which you came across during a research work, or is this one of its kind? It's an unprecedented book which has been written by you.
it is one of its kind which actually speaks about the electoral fraud and the processes and the problems we have faced. It actually speaks about the functioning, not the theory, but the actual functioning of the election commission that we have seen since
Yeah.
2000 till date, the past 6 years between two Lok Sabha elections, the actual functioning. The books, as I said, there's one book by Mr. Qureshi on the election commission and the role they need to play. It's
Yeah.
a thick, but you do not find such books which actually it showcases not just the history but also the problems, the scams, quote unquote, like scheme of electoral bond and political funding, the importance of it, and one nation, one election as well. That
Yes.
is, I have left it because I have to submit the book. And as all of us know, that one nation, one election is the hot topic right now. It's going on, it's a debate. And in this book, I have touched upon the pros and cons as well. Now, let the reader decide what is good for our democracy. And I have, of course, given the facts there that one nation, one election is practically not possible, and it will require lots of constitutional amendments as well. And the most important thing, which I feel, as per the experts, which they have said, that right now, the political party candidate who's contesting from your constituency, he comes twice at least in 5 years seeking vote from you, and you will see that they will make few things work, job done, and हाथ जोड़ के बाहर खड़े हो जाएंगे कि वोट दे दीजिए. But if we go in that mode of one nation one election, then they are the, it's just once, we will lose that. And state election, the issues are different. Lok Sabha elections, the issues are different. So right now, two different elections does certainly give voter far more power than one nation, one election. So that is one issue which I have spoken about. It's a matter of debate. There's already JPC going on this issue. So, but apart from that, there are multiple other things, and practically it doesn't look doable
Absolutely.
because we are also aware of the fact that state, they do, discontinue due to some reasons, and as we have seen in different states, how can you expect it to go on together for years?
The timing of your book launch, don't you think? there couldn't be a more perfect timing than this, because now election commission seems to be looking like a receptive election commission. It's ready to hear, it's ready to listen. And then especially after the Lok Sabha elections, we've had elections in Haryana, Maharashtra, Delhi, Jharkhand, and the kind of problems which we've seen. I mean, it all began with the votes polled and the number of votes counted and votes polled. Form 17C, then in Haryana elections, we came across issues of 99% batteries being charged. Now it has graduated to these epic numbers. You know, we are seeing different manifestations of electoral fraud, and I don't know how many more to come out. You know, we're not sure. But how has, I mean, do you find any change when you write a book, and when you feel that will the election commission change in any way? Given the fact that now there's a lot of pressure from the government and everybody knows about it, because you have a chief election commissioner who's appointed by the government. He's a government's man. There is no say of the leader of the opposition. And when the appointment procedure is like that, so obviously when the election commission, the chief election commissioner is so compromised, or he's a government's man, what hope are we really left with?
As I said, Neelu, that I'm a hopeful person. Nothing happens in one day. We need to keep on the fight, and that's why I have written this book. That as a voter, please understand what you need to know. Why the appointment of election commission is so important. There's already petition lying in the Supreme Court. And it's lying there for almost over a year. The Supreme Court did not hear the matter. But the worst thing is that when new election commissioner was supposed to be appointed, just few days before that, the matter came in the Supreme Court, but it was adjourned on some grounds. So the matter is still there, but a new election commissioner has been appointed. But the hope is that Supreme Court said that depending on the Supreme Court's judgment, accordingly actions would be taken. So whichever way the judgment goes, we are still waiting for that. So the fight is on, the fight is going on. The best thing is that people are fighting for it. Maybe a small bunch of people, maybe a very few people who are part of it, but at least the fight is going on. And let me also tell you here, electoral bonds, I've written about this in the book. When I first exposed the hidden numbers in the bonds, political parties didn't understand about it. Who understood it? The experts, the people who work on this issue, like ADR, Association for Democratic Reform, and like Sita Ram Yechuri, he was no more. He understood the importance of electoral bonds, and CPM didn't take any donation through electoral bonds. They said they will not. So again, I would also like to point out here that this fight which we are doing, by fight I mean that we are writing articles as a journalist and fighting petition in the court. This is being done solely by people who believe in democracy. Political parties are not doing much on it, and we do not hope much from them. That's also very clear, because at the end of the day, they only care for the election, whether they win or lose. That's it. But one thing good that I have observed in this election 2024, they came forward to understand what Form 17C is, why it is important for the polling agents to pick it up on the polling day. And I mentioned about it because I was surprised, Neelu, that even veteran politicians who have been fighting elections for decades, they didn't know what Form 17C is and why it is important. It is the most crucial document in any election. So, this kind of lack of awareness among people was a concern, and it is still today a concern. But now, at least we have reached a stage where people are discussing about it, talking about it. At least some people know, and you'll be. It's a bit funny. The person who was working on the book, one of the person, and she's a young girl, and she read the book, and she said the first thing she said, that after reading your book, I now know what Form 17C is. I never heard about it earlier. So that is why this book is important, and I am saying it not because I've written, but at least anybody who wants to know more about these things, the subject, And if they really care about being, about the democracy, one should read it and understand, and please pass it on to the next generation, because this generation is, I feel they are into understanding more about these subjects, and they are very much aware of it as well.
Right. Right. But I would definitely appeal to the viewers who are watching this program that India Inked is the title of the book, which has been written by Poonam Agarwal. It's a very beautifully worded book, and please read this. And reading will not only help the democracy, but it will give you a peek into what your election commission is doing, how they've stolen votes, what is the modus operandi, what all they have used to steal your votes. This book gives you a sneak peek, if I may use that word. It gives you a wonderful window into all of that. You must have just heard people talking, you must have heard programs on this, but when you get it in the form of a book, then it becomes a legacy for generations to see that during this era, how electoral malpractice was rampant, and how the election commission and the ruling party, they connived to steal your vote. So it's a very important book, and as Poonam said, that this is unprecedented, never before. And in fact, that book by Mr. Qureshi, which Poonam was referring to, I've read that book, so I know, but it doesn't talk about this kind of an electoral fraud to which Poonam has referred to. And of course, her proficiency and the long years of investigation which she has put into all that really is reflective of the way, the manner in which the book has been written. But Poonam, now the last bit from you, that what do you expect now? What is the kind of change you are expecting after this book? And I'm totally asking you from the point of view of the attitude and the approach of the judiciary. Judiciary has been very closed door. It has been reticent, and thinking that maybe we don't have to attack the election commission because it is another constitutional body. At least this is what we felt when the hearings were on regarding the vvpat slips last year, if you remember. And there was a certain kind of reticence. I don't know how much the courts will now open up, but do you think that the courts can use this India Inked as a reference point to at least enlighten themselves and see what's really going wrong?
Please, please, I am always available to any body or committee or anybody who needs any sort of understanding on this issue. And this book, the whole purpose is also to get people understand, be it judiciary or election commission or anybody else, to understand what election commission is meant to do. And I have given reference of TN Session in this book for the simple reason because that man understood the powers of Chief Election Commissioner, and he is remembered till date for his work. So let's please go back to that era where CC did their job with full authority because they have the complete power during elections. And this book will at least make people think where they are going wrong and what needs to be fixed. And this is also for every polling agent who work during the election, during the polling day, to understand what are their rights, what all they can demand, what all they can seek from the presiding officer or officer and the political party candidates. I request them to read this book, and I've heard that the few training sessions are also organized by political parties, of their polling agents. Please talk about these issues, not just about the strategy of how to win elections.
True.
Oh, this is the core. If you don't do this, then you might lose elections in spite of doing everything right. It's just like
Absolutely.
operation bit. You need to be very careful during the operation. Otherwise, gathering all medicines, all the infrastructure will not make you win the election. So, as you said, that there isn't any book in the market which gives you a sneak peek into the current election process and the flaws and the strength and why political funding is so crucial. So I would recommend that read this book, And also read your political candidate who's fighting the election from the constituency. Keep a watch on these things before you go out and press the button. As a voter, my job is just not to press the button. Behind that, you need to do a little bit of homework, so that whatever you do bear fruits.
Absolutely, absolutely. And wish you all the best, Poonam, for this India Inked, and wishing you a bombastic sale and wishing you many more books like these. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank